The Queen's Talk, where we honor and celebrate women on their self-love journey, where we share our stories about how we overcame past trauma and where we are now. Welcome to the Queen's Talk, Queens. Hello, everybody. Hello, Stacy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
That's good. Welcome to the Queen's Talk, everybody. Tonight is our first episode of the emotional finance summer series. We'll be talking about this for 3 months straight, so don't forget to check us out every first Wednesday of the month. We'll be talking about different things about finance, and tonight's topic is mood in finance or mood and money. Because does your money affect your mood? I know a lot of times that happens. Mood does affect my money does affect my mood, and looks like it affects Stacy's mood as well. So feel free to comment in the chat if you have any questions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and feel free to comment in the chat if you have any questions. All right, Stacy, you have your turn to introduce yourself. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Leslie. My name is Stacy Tucker, and I teach families and business owners how to create, how to build, how to leave a legacy, and to pursue their dreams. I primarily do that through financial education. For my business, from the insurance side, primarily through the proper and adequate insurance practices, but it all relates to their money and how having it or needing more of it can affect our well-being.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, it does affect my well-being as a self-employed hairstylist. It affects my well-being when it comes to mood, because when I got clients back to back, I'm making money. When I don't, it feel like I'm broke. So that affects my mood. This being self-employed and a hairstylist, but we'll get into that later. But the first question I wanted to ask you tonight is, what is your mental state when your finances are versus when they're not?
We've all been there, Leslie. You go to the mailbox, you pull out a stack of bills, and the ones from last month aren't paid or they're behind, and you've got a new stack in your hand. So you just leave them unopened, right? So what mood occurs? You're anxious now, you're stressed. And so that inadequacy, I'll use that term, of having the right resources you need to cover even your basic expenses can really make you sad. It can make you pessimistic. Having enough resources to take care of our basic needs keeps us hopeful. And so when we don't have it, it can kind of take that hope away from us.
It definitely does. I know personally, like I said before, when I'm making money and money's going to an account, I feel like, okay, I can make it. And my confidence is a little bit higher versus when I don't, my confidence is a little bit lower. Yeah. So the next question is, who taught you about money? Was it family? Was it someone else? Was it work? Was it school? Because I know for me as a millennial, me and my friends talk about this all the time. Um, Nobody we wasn't taught finances in school, or our parents really didn't teach us this. Is get a good job, and you kind of learn how to find finances later when you start to have the old credit cards and you become a grown up and had to pay grown up bills.
I'm glad you said that. So the way we grew up is the way we grow up.
Mm,
And so the people who teach us about money, we're going to kind of max out on knowledge at where they maxed out until we have to adult, as you said. Now we have to get our own apartment, or we have to now get our own credit cards and pay our own bills. We have to continue to get knowledge about how money works. And so I personally learned a lot of it because of, like you, I had a strong desire to be an entrepreneur. I no longer wanted to work the 9 to 5 for the woman or anything like that. And so I learned a lot of it the hard way. But because of all the certifications I needed to enter the profession I did, I learned so much about money. But if I'm being real transparent and honest, I entered into the field of banking when I was just in my late teenage years. I started working at a bank. So that was my first professional experiences with money. My earlier experiences were learned the hard way, like many people, through lack, and living in an urban area where there was often more month than money. And so
mhm.
then how do you bridge that gap? And you learn that through work ethic. My mom was a really, really hard worker. We did some pretty creative things over some summer months to fill the gaps when there was unemployment issues. And I can share those with you maybe on a later call, but those are the things where I learned about it. But I will say though, if you are learning about money, you're right, our school system really gets an F in teaching us about money. To be a school system, you get an F. You may have one personal finance class required as part of most curriculums, but outside of that, nobody really helps you with that. And so we often will go to our friends or somebody with a question, a specific question in a moment about finances, but we never get this global broad stroke about how money works. And without that, we're going to miss the pieces of the puzzle for how the rest of it works, right? If you don't understand how credit works, how do you understand how a car note works or a mortgage works or uncollateralized loan, and how does insurance work? How does life insurance work? How do these things work? They all kind of go together. And so we do want to make sure we're consulting the appropriate person who understands money. If you don't have a financial advisor, get one, look for one. There's plenty of apps and things out there now that'll help you with that. However, everyone's money situation is very, very different. Depends on your age. Do you own a home? Do you rent a home? Do you have debt? Do you not have debt? How much is your income? So you need to talk with a professional who can speak to your specific circumstances and guide you along the way to get you to your money goals.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because I know this is Stacy and I's second time speaking about finance. And I know you mentioned before your first introduction to money was you working at a bank. What was the first thing you learned about money? Like it kind of blew your mind when you was working at the bank.
I literally held a lot of cash in my hand when I worked at a bank. I worked as a drive-in teller at a time when people didn't have electronic banking. People would give me their paper check to cash, hundreds of dollars, and I would cash out the money. But seeing those people's paychecks taught me to dream bigger than the one that I was making, handing them that money, right? Because I could see people coming through the drive-thru every Friday with these big checks, and I was handing them money. What I also learned that's a key factor is that you can't be comfortable paying more in interest than you're earning in interest. You can't be more comfortable paying more in interest than you're earning in interest. And often the things that help earn us the most interest, we don't understand them, so we don't use them. Or people may say, oh, that's not earning anything, but you're using a credit card at 19, 22, 24, 26, 29% interest to pay for basic everyday expenses, and not managing that or understanding how credit works, or when you can use other people's money and not pay any interest because of the timing of it. So those are the kinds of things I learned along the way. Don't get me wrong, I learned them the hard way. It took me many years to figure out your statement cycle and how to use balance transfers at times if needed to get your money at a interest free. Interest will cripple you. Sometimes the cost of the interest is almost costing you as much as the money itself if you're not careful.
Yeah. So my next question is, I know that you have a daughter that just graduated from high school, and I don't know if she's going to college or she's entering to a new adulthood. What would you tell her? I know she can get financial advice from you, but any young person that just graduated from high school, where can they get financial advice from? Because I know we can watch tons of YouTube videos, but where is the source to go to learn finance?
That's a loaded question, Leslie. Most people get their money mindset, as we said earlier, from their parents. If your parents are people who say, oh, you don't need a credit card, don't get any credit because you could end up in a world of trouble, because that's what happened to them. So what they need to do is really consult with or go to somebody who they can look at and say, how do you use money? How do you manage debt? Should I get a credit card? It may be yes, it may be no, but we know that we all eventually are going to need it for certain important things. But if you look at the people around you and look like they understand money, then go to them. And if it's your parents, great. If it's a older sibling, if it's a trusted person that you know who seems to have a good understanding of money, go ask them. And of course, you said it. You look at YouTube. TikTok is a great source of financial education, but it still has to be applied to your specific situation. I'm gonna be honest. I'm very grateful for social media, for TikTok and YouTube now, because it's explaining money in ways that weren't explained before. It used to be only explained by men in blue pinstripe suits with thick mustaches, right? So nobody who wants to listen to that guy. But now if it's somebody who's your age, who's telling it in a funny, useful way, how to invest in real estate, how to buy, money, how to invest, how to use insurance as a way to invest in real estate, all those sorts of things. And then it makes them ask the question, what is this? And dig further, and then go ask the right professional, somebody who's licensed in those things who can help you.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with what you said when it comes to like YouTube, and I have to get on TikTok when it comes to finances. I'm on there for food stuff, but when it comes to finances, because it has taught me like how to those little budget binders. I'm into the little budget binders now, and I'm into credit card. Like, okay, you can to build up your credit, put your bills on this credit card and make sure you pay them off. Just understanding that, and I know back a while back they didn't have that, so I'm very appreciative of that now, because it's like it's free education. Like I don't like reading personally. Reading is not my thing. So I'm a visual learner. I like to hear and see things. So I think that it's great. Like if it's the tools are available to use and you can just type in any subject you have a problem with, no matter what the money problem is, whether it's taxes or budgeting or anything like that, credit. I think that's a great go to. Is there anybody particular who you would go to?
So every site that I'm going to name, you're going to have a detractor and somebody who's for it, right? If I say Credit Karma, there are going to be people, depending on which side of the argument you're on, going to go, oh, it's just a marketing platform. It is, but it also helps you understand credit in visual ways, like you just described. Most of your banks, if you have a credit card from Capital One, Citi Cards, most of these credit cards now have a monthly, now sometimes a daily tracking of your credit. So you can almost immediately see how your financial decisions are affecting your credit score. Are they exactly accurate every single day? But at least you can see trends. And so I would say, even for somebody with as much financial information as I do, I've used all of those tools like CreditWise, which Capital One uses, and then Credit Karma. You can use these simulators that will say, okay, if I pay off my car by this much, how much will it affect my score? If I get a new credit card with this credit limit, how much will this affect my score? If I get an increase on my current credit card, how will that improve my score? So tools like that, and there's dozens of apps, and I'm not going to name some here, but those are some of the big ones that most people already have access to. No matter what bank you're using, most of them have credit tracking tools within them now that we should be taking advantage of. Most of the credit cards also will tell you when your statement closing date is. Right? So if you're on your Citi Cards, I know that one personally, it says your statement closing date is this date. That's the date you want to watch and make sure your bill is paid by the end of that day with the most you can put it on that day. And that's the only day that matters in the credit cycle. So just things like that, those are tools you can use to help you understand that.
Yeah. As we're talking, I'm just thinking about there's so many topics when it comes to money. Like you said, there's credit and paying, before the end of the date of the when it's due or whatever. And then it's interest, and then it's budgeting, and it's how much are you making to make sure you pay that off. And then it's finances so much. And I know that's something that you can't build Rome in a day. It's gonna take time for you to understand money, period. And just to apply it into to save. Even saving money is difficult. If you have any money, how you gonna save? How you gonna, so it's just a lot of topics to cover when you're talking about finance. So I can't wait to continue the conversation this summer. But the next question I have is, when you were taught about money, what was a triggering situation? Was it something that triggered you about money? Kind of a situation that you've been in?
So I personally am I'm a dreamer. So I'm always optimistic and I'm always hopeful. So even in some of my toughest personal financial situations, I was always hopeful that tomorrow's another day. And if I work hard and if I employ the work ethic that I've had all this time, I can solve this. And I'm thankful that I've been able to do that. It didn't always happen. What did you just say? It didn't happen in a day. Sometimes it took a couple of years. There were times when I should have quit and stopped what I was doing and just stopped altogether, but I kept going. So those are the sorts of things that inspire me. But I'll be honest, becoming an entrepreneur, as you just said, is probably one of the biggest financial triggers, because you're truly completely dependent upon what you physically are able to do until you get to the point where you build a team and have staff and they're working for you and the money can come in while you're asleep, so to speak. But other than that, it's your own efforts. How many times are you willing to pick up that phone or go do the activities and efforts to solve whatever that financial trigger is? You know, you don't want it to get to the point where it causes you anxiety and stress and depression, which creates another financial problem. It's really a cycle for all those things.
Yeah. And another thing is, I enjoy being self employed and the freedom of not answering to anybody. But as a hairstylist, a lot of people don't realize the seriousness of this is my job. This is how I pay my bills. So if you don't come, I don't get paid. And that kind of puts me in a bond. But um, as a business owner, I have to put policies in place to know that, like, it's just a lot being a business owner and a hairstylist, depending on others for to pay your bills. But if you don't have it set up correctly, you can be without. So it's kind of pushing me to put things in place and be, to be more direct. And even you have helped me with, like, no, you need to go this way instead of that way. Even though I want to be the nice guy to everybody, but sometimes, like, oh, I don't have it right now. Can I pay you? Can you still do the service, but can I pay you later? It's just like, this is a business. And that's another part of people to understand money and business and friendships and,
Don't think that I haven't been there.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say to entrepreneurs is what you just said. Obviously, one thing you want to do as soon as you can is obviously make your personal credit as strong as possible so that you can have lines of credit for those moments when what's actually coming in isn't enough. There are tools out there now. If you use QuickBooks or Intuit, well, they will finance your invoices. So let's say you create a system where you give invoices to people where, okay, for a few people, you may say, okay, I know you got this coming up, you got a wedding or this event, I'll do your hair. Here's the invoice. There are companies that will finance your invoices for you. So little things like that to help you get through those moments when you don't necessarily have it coming in. But if you're hopeful, if you're an optimistic and you're totally confident in your skills and your ability to bring in more, then go ahead and do the work and then figure out ways to get that money, while not necessarily from the person that you provided the service to, but to be able to advance those funds.
Yeah. And to go back a little bit further, when during the pandemic, a lot of hairstylists, we kind of shut down. We didn't have any income coming in. So we had to create other streams of income. And I think this kind of what the pandemic has taught us too is to create more than just one stream of income. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you can't just depend on one. I think Steve Harvey said that. Like, Steve Harvey's a radio personality. He's a Family Feud. He's on the internet. He's on this. So he's taught, he's this examples of him. He's taught us to have more than one stream of income when you are self-employed, because even if you have a regular 9-to-5, it's great to have multiple streams of income because you never know what could happen.
No, that's exactly a good point, Leslie. So what I would say to that is, of course, one of your streams has to be the strongest, right? Maybe it was you and I who talked about earlier. You can have one that's on full boil and 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 on simmer, because if the full boil one comes down, a situation like, who would have predicted a global pandemic, right? So something that's simmering that you can bring up a little bit to kind of fill the gaps for those businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the last question. And anybody who has any questions, feel free to comment in the chat if you have any questions. And last question is, how has your mental health in your bank account? How is your mental health when your bank account is empty versus when payday arrives?
Let's be honest, you and I both know what that feels like, right? When you look at, and if you should be checking it regularly, like almost daily, so you know what you have on any given day. I do know that on those days when you know it's not where you need it to be, it's tempting to not look at it. However, when you know it, that's the case. That's even more reason you need to. So you said it earlier, like your confidence level is diminished. Like even the way you present to the world is a little bit diminished. Sometimes it causes depression, anxiety, those sorts of things. Sometimes even panic attacks people have when there's not enough money in the account. Now, when the paycheck drops in, there's songs about it, right? Just got paid. You're happy. It's Friday night. So it does. It creates endorphins and serotonins and things that make you feel better. We do, however, want to be careful with that it doesn't make us feel so good that we go out and be more impulsive and overspending because
That's
we
what
don't
it
have the
is.
confidence, right? Those are the moments we should go, phew, let me parcel some of this aside so I can put this aside for the days when it's not there. So honestly, we know that finances are a number one cause of stress, and it does have a huge impact on our mental health. However, a few small tweaks can change that narrative, and over time this few small tweaks become big steps that help us on our journey to financial wellness.
Yeah, I agree. I know personally for myself, um, when I have money, I am like, oh, I can make it. But when I don't, I just like I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm poor. But then it's like a wave, and sometimes in life you have those people who are extra frugal, who have all the money but never spend it, and then you have people who always spend the money who never save. It's just like the world is full of people who do different things when it comes to money. Either they
so
save it and they don't ever spend it and they die with all this money in their account, or then they people that don't have no money when they die.
so that's a very interesting point. So your money behaviors, as we talked about a little bit earlier, a lot of them are based upon our formative years and how the people around us use money, our early money mindset, correct? So having more of it doesn't normally change those patterns. If you grew up with lack, you have this tendency to hold on and be frugal. You won't go even enjoy yourself on a vacation. I won't eat a meal out. I won't spend the extra to get the large instead of the medium. Those are just some small examples, right? And if you're impulsive and excessive, lack doesn't cause that because you're still going to figure out a way to go and be excessive. So we have to train our minds to really get into a proper balanced mindset with our money so that we can get through whatever the situation is. It shouldn't matter what day it is, whether we have, a few dollars in our checking account or multiple commas and zeros. It's our behaviors that are the ones that need to be adjusted. Really make sure we're in a place of true financial wellness.
Yeah, I agree. We have a comment from Steve. It says, "What are some ways to stock money away for the future?"
That is a really good question. So I'm an insurance professional, and one of the ways that I'm going to talk about, probably not on this particular segment of the show, in the next, this is a series, so there'll be some more advanced levels of this. I use life insurance as a way to stock away money. There's many other ways. I use CDs. I use obviously the obvious ways. You can invest in real estate. I own a home. You don't want to invest in things, or don't want to put your money in things that depreciate, right? You don't want to put your money in things that depreciate. And I won't get specific about that, but I think we all know what those things are. But you want to put it in a place that's earning the most interest that dollar can earn. You want your money working hard for you. And it can't do both. You can't spend it and save it unless you put it in something that you can use as collateral to borrow somebody else's. And I'm gonna leave that on the shelf maybe for maybe the next segment.
Yeah, now I've always heard about Bitcoin and these things like on Cash App and stuff like that. What are the pros and cons of stocks? Because sometimes the stock falls, sometimes it's high. I've never done stock. So what are the pros and cons about stock?
So I don't have the professional licenses to give advice on that at this point. However, what we do know is you should have your basics in place first. If you don't have 4 to 6 months of income already, you probably shouldn't be putting your dollars in things that have a risk of loss. Yes, a risk of gain, but if there's a risk that you can lose some of it, you don't want to do that before you have your basis, your 4 to 6 months of emergency fund or 4 months of expenses socked away somewhere, something safe and conservative.
Okay, gotcha. So is there any advice the last couple of words you want to give? This is a summer series, guys, so thank you for joining. Next month, we will on July, the first Wednesday in July, we will be back again with more emotional financial conversations. I know this is a difficult conversation to have that most people of our color don't have, but we got to talk about it so we can be better and grow. So is there any last information that you have, or anybody want to give any questions?
Sure, it's twofold. Money doesn't make you wealthy. Understanding money does. And so
Mm.
we all have to make ourselves a bit more financially intelligent, not just financially literate, because literate just means you can read, right? If you say a person is illiterate, that means they can't read. But once you know what the words say, that's one thing. But understanding how to apply it is intelligence. So we all need to take some of the hours we're spending on other things and get to know and understand money. And then second, like you just said, we have to start to be comfortable talking about it with the people closest to us, or with, even if that means sharing something that we're not super proud of, but asking for help on how to get to the next level of your money journey.
I agree. I agree. This has taught me a lot. There was a lot that I did not know, but you have shared with me, and I appreciate your knowledge that you have passed on. Being an entrepreneur is a lot. Being a millennial is a lot. When we like to travel, like you said earlier, we like the experience of life. We like to go to Chick-fil-A during the week and spend unnecessary monies and DoorDash and Instacart and all those little side things that our parents wouldn't do, but now we doing it. So it's good to see from another perspective of how you can maneuver ways around it and just understanding money better. Because we all like money. Let's just be honest. Money makes us feel good. All right, T. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Leslie. Looking forward to next month.
Yes. All right. Bye.